Welcome to my 2024 prediction, Joe Biden versus Ron DeSantis, fall updated prediction. So let's start. And there we go. So let's start with the likely states for, firstly for Joe Biden. So Colorado wouldn't change much. It would probably drop slightly. I think there will be lesser turnout than what we saw in 2020, and it will drop to like 11%. And now for New Mexico, similar story. It would drop slightly. It wouldn't become a lean for that to happen. There would be a lot of things that would happen in the economy and stuff. Now for Virginia, so Virginia, same story. For Virginia to drop back and to move to the right, a lot of things would happen. And I think it would drop to around, at best case scenario for Ron DeSantis, to 7%, even though I think it's going to be around 8%. And for Maine's at large, it will go to like 6-7%, nothing much here. And now for Ron DeSantis, for his likely states, for Texas, he would probably be able to rebound the state back to a decent margin for the GOP. Would probably be around 8-9%, maybe 10% if he's able to have a good campaign for the GOP. And yeah, now let me talk about Florida. So Florida is another interesting one. I think just barely a likely state. It could drop to a lean to like 4.5%, but I think since Ron DeSantis is the governor here, he would easily win his home state. And now for these two Rust Belt states. So for Iowa, you could theoretically say that if Joe Biden has really low turnout, Ron DeSantis could technically make Iowa a safe state. Bear in mind my statistics are 12 plus equals safe. I wouldn't be surprised if this would happen, but I think Ron DeSantis will win here by around 2016 margin of like 9-10%. While for Ohio, it would be similar. I think it would still go to the right. It would probably come at 8-9%, but I think in this scenario, Iowa would vote way more to the right than Ohio. And that's it for the likely states. So as you can see, Joe Biden has 211 versus Ron DeSantis 218. While for the 2nd district of Maine is really interesting. For me, it's really gonna be 50-50 chance that it's gonna be a likely or a lean district. I'm not sure. It could easily go either way. Depends on how the campaign goes, but I think with the Trump endorsement, he should do well enough that he wins the 2nd district of Maine. So this would put him at 219. And now let me talk about the lean states for each party. So let's start Minnesota. Yeah, let's start with Minnesota. So Minnesota's pretty interesting. It's not going to be like 2016 in which it almost went for the GOP. It only went to the Democrats by 1.5%. And I think in this scenario, it would be going to the Democrats by around a lean margin. I think it would be around 3-4%. But even with low turnout, they would be easily able to win Minnesota. And I don't expect Minnesota to go red, at least in 2024 2028. While for New Hampshire, Ron DeSantis is a really decent candidate for this state, but I just don't see him, Ron DeSantis, beating Joe Biden in this state. Maybe Kamala Harris could lose New Hampshire, but even with Ron DeSantis' appeal and the suburbs, it would still be a lean state to around 2-3%. And now for the lean states for Ron DeSantis. So let me talk with firstly North Carolina. So North Carolina, you could theoretically say that it could easily be a likely state, and I could see that happening if Ron DeSantis wins by a decent margin in 2024, but I still see him winning here by around 4%, 4.5% in the best case scenario, but it wouldn't surprise me if he actually does win by a likely margin. Maybe in 2024 that happens, but we will see. So I think, let me see, and before I forget, the last lean district is the 2nd district of Nebraska. So if you don't know what happened, the Nebraska GOP really tried to gerrymander it, but it went from plus Biden 7 to only plus 6. They only changed the map barely. So even in 2024, if it was Kamala Harris versus Ron DeSantis, she will even probably win here by a tilt margin. So I expect Joe Biden to easily win the 2nd district of Nebraska once again. And before we go to the tilt states, I think In 2024, I think with low turnout, Wisconsin would be the first to flip in 2024. It could easily be a tilt state, but I think Ron DeSantis with his appeal would win here by around 1.25%. And he would do way better in the WOW counties, and yeah, I think this will be the most likely state to flip in 2024, and Ron DeSantis would probably win here, of course. And now, so as you can see, Joe Biden has 226 against Ron DeSantis 245. And now let's talk about the tilt states. So the first tilt state I'm going to talk about is Nevada. It could easily be a lean state, kind of like the reverse of what Wisconsin is. But for the Democrats, I think that with the new management of the state of Nevada and the fact that I would say that the Reid machine is not what it used to be, I think the establishment in the Nevada Democratic Party is not going to do as well as they used to do before. Still expect Joe Biden to keep this state because incumbency and the fact that he's president. I'm not sure. I think if it was Harris, Ron DeSantis would barely win this state. But for now, I think Joe Biden versus Ron DeSantis, Joe Biden wins the state of Nevada by a tilt margin of around 0.75%. And now let's talk to the neighboring state of Arizona. Ron DeSantis would pretty easily win the state of Arizona. It barely went to Joe Biden in 2020. Bear in mind that Trump really it's almost as if he tried to lose the state by going so much for John McCain. So it should easily flip back for Ron DeSantis in this scenario. Maybe by a lean margin. I wouldn't be surprised, but I think Ron DeSantis won the state by a tilt margin in 2024. Bear in mind, the final result of this video is what I see the election if it was held today. And it could easily change, but this is my prediction as of now. And now let's talk about Pennsylvania. So Pennsylvania is one of the most interesting states in 2024, in my honest opinion. It is basically Joe Biden's second home state. He has really made it, and he has basically done that just, because it's a flip state and he needs it. But the major issue I see for Joe Biden and Ron DeSantis, mostly for Joe Biden, is debates. I think that throughout history we've seen that most of the time a younger, more charismatic candidate will almost always do better against a more older, more slower candidate. And I think Joe Biden, that's his main issue in 2024 would be the debates. I think against Trump it would be sadly just a repeat of what the 2020 debate was. But against Ron DeSantis, I think that as long as Ron DeSantis has a decent campaign and a good debate, he could flip the state of Pennsylvania. I think that it would really come down to debate. But if Joe Biden has a mediocre debate, which I would expect him to have against Ron DeSantis, Ron DeSantis would just flip the state of Pennsylvania, which does put him over 270. While let me talk about Michigan. So Michigan, it would go to Joe Biden by a tilt margin, a high tilt margin, similar to like Nevada as we saw. It would be around 0.75%. It would go to the Democrats by a higher margin than what Pennsylvania would go. I think Pennsylvania would be around really one of the tighter states, probably like 0.25%. And Michigan, I just don't see Ron DeSantis having the numbers in Michigan. Even though most of the time these three states do vote in unison, I just don't see Ron DeSantis having the numbers here. Maybe if it was Trump, I could see that Trump would do better in these three states, though. He would do better in Michigan and Pennsylvania. And lastly, for Georgia, which in my opinion would be really the closest state, past 2024, it's probably going to be a tilt Democrat state or a lean Democratic state in the long term. But the 2024 election is most likely going to be the last time we see the Republicans having a decent chance in Georgia. And I think that because Ron DeSantis is from the neighboring state of Florida, he has more southern appeal, and I expect the GOP with Ron DeSantis to win this state barely, though, by a tilt margin in 2024. I think Ron DeSantis is one of the few Republicans, major Republicans, that would be able to win the state of Georgia against Joe Biden. I think Joe Biden would not, would be able to win against Trump in this state. And yeah, so This was my 2024 election versus Joe Biden against Ron DeSantis, and Ron DeSantis wins with 291 electoral votes against Joe Biden's 247. Thank you so much for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe. Stay tuned for the next video.